Okay, it is 5:30, so I will call the meeting to order. Alicia, could you please do a roll call?
Yep. Lori Belargin.
Here.
Ian McDonald.
Here.
Matt Foucault.
Here.
Lacey Oster.
Here.
Bruce Belargin.
Here.
Cherie Link. Marge Below.
Here.
Okay, together we engage, educate, and empower all learners, bridging their passions to pathways to create successful futures and positively contribute to our local and global communities. Shannon, last minute, had a family emergency, so she's not gonna be able to make it to the meeting tonight as well. Is there a motion to approve our agenda?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Motion carries. We'll now move on to our public comment. Opinions and ideas contributed by students, parents, staff, and other citizens are valuable to the school board. All comments should be directed to the board and not to staff or other meeting attendees. All statements should be directed to me, as no person may address or question board members individually. The board will receive such input without comment or take no action relative to any items brought forth. We may direct the district administrator to consider such an item at an appropriate place on the agenda or a subsequent meeting. Per board policy, your public comment will be limited to no more than 3 minutes. And you may begin your public comment by stating your name and address, and I will have a board member start a timer. So we have a pile here tonight. I'm glad to see everybody here tonight. Danielle, would you like to start us out?
Danielle Erickson, 1975 62nd Street, Somerset, Wisconsin. On behalf of Somerset High School parents, I want to thank Dr. Newman and Shannon Donnelly for so quickly responding to our concern about the reading material in the library for our youth. We as parents are reaching out to collaborate with our educators going forward on the books vetted to be in the library, and even more importantly, those chosen as part of the curriculum. We hold a strong belief in community standards and encouraging our youth to uphold a solid moral compass. The books we requested to come under review do not encourage our students to follow moral strength and virtue. Instead, there is book after book with victims of graphic rape, molestation, incest, drug, and alcohol abuse that modern day society tells us relates to youth. We as a collective society are pleading to get ahead of this sad culture. Let us take that bold step to get in front of our modern day troubles with works of literature that excel in mental and physical strength, virtue, and modesty that will result in the critical thinking that our children need to survive in this modern culture. Going forward, we are determined in our mission for better reading and instructional material. For those books that are determined to remain in circulation by the school, we will be appealing those decisions and presenting other reading material as a substitute. Thank you.
Thank you, Danny. Monet and Brian, did you guys want to go take
Oh, he's gonna come up after when you call his name. Okay. Monet Escarca, 444 Random Drive, Amory. So I am here today to bring awareness and voice my concerns with some disturbing content in the books that have been located in our school's classroom and library. It was brought to my attention February 8th that a stack of 8 to 9 books of All Boys Aren't Blue were in an English classroom. In front of you, Exhibit A, and some of the pornographic content that is in that book. I'm aware you have all received this via email, but I would like you to personally have it in your hands as our children have had it in their hands, accessible in their hands. I'm grateful this was brought to my attention. I believe that exposing this issue and bringing to attention is important. It's important so we can move forward as a district, staff, and parents alike and make changes. It's also important to bring awareness so parents can have the opportunity to talk with their children and watch for any of this content that may come across them in the school grounds. As a parent, I want to know what is happening in our schools and how I can come alongside to get this content out of our school and be reassured that this doesn't happen again. I was in the office 3 times for the concern of pornographic books in our school, and there was miscommunications and unanswered questions with my visits. I was told the books in Exhibit A that you have were taken out of our classroom and locked up. 4 days later, come to find out it was still in the classroom. As of today, March 6th, 11 out of 11 remain in our library catalog. And I've been told again that they are working together to gather a team to get these books out of the classroom. As I am hopeful for that, I would like to be reassured of this action. As of March 2nd, Exhibit B, the perks of being a wallflower were still in the library and were located by a student. And they're in the catalog, there's 67 out of 69 of these books. So a question I have is that used as curriculum? Why so many books? As of March 6th, Exhibit C, The Handmaid's Tale, the graphic novel, says in our library, catalog 1 out of 1. Not located, but wondering why we have this in our catalog. I'm hopeful as a team we'll be moving forward with a quick response and taking care of this issue. My concern is how did over 30 books in this explicit sexual content, rape, incest, and other pornographic material end up in our school? Somewhere, our administration, teachers, and even parents have failed our students. The school is a place where children should feel safe, protected, and given a healthy education. We need to come together as a whole and make sure this does not happen in our future.
30 seconds.
Thank you. These books being located in our school brings light that there is obvious discrepancies in our school's process of bringing in education material. If 30 books like this can be in your hands, available to your students and my daughter. I'm not here to be negative or oppositional, but to be proactive, as all and any parent should be. Maybe we got here today in this position by our lack of proactiveness. I just put a lot of trust in our school that my daughter would never be subject by our school
It's 3, that's
to
right.
this pornographic material.
And Ryan?
Just state your address and your name, honey.
Ryan Iskerka, 444 Random Drive, Emery, Wisconsin. And I'm going to give my 3 minutes to my lovely wife.
I still have questions that aren't answered, such as who is responsible for this material being brought into our school? Why did the English teacher feel this was appropriate to be put in our kids' hands? Where are these books now? Where will they be placed after review? What consequences and who is held accountable? And this was a national issue. So why isn't our school on top of this prior? We should be paying attention to what is happening at a national level and not fall behind. Also, are we helping our neighboring districts by making them aware? Are we talking to Richmond, St. Croix Falls, Baldwin, saying, hey, this is what happened at our school, let's check your school. Let's keep all kids safe from this. As an educator and a human being, we should all want to be and bring awareness to this. I hope we can move forward and resolve this together, hoping in the near future we can execute a plan to prevent this explicit sexual content from creeping in our schools. Let's not fail our kids and do better, Somerset. Thank you.
Louis?
Louis Germain, 2021 State Road 35. Okay, when I was here in November, you guys said you were $800,000 in the hole, around that number, if I remember right. What are we in the hole right now, going on this month? I figured you wouldn't answer, so my question is are you gonna use the referendum money to bail you out? Seeing that Bruce's numbers that he had on the Somerset community page shows that we have an extra $1,280,000 roughly. So my question is, can you use referendum money to bail you out on a previous year's school that you're not making your budget? Then another example, 2019, referendum. You guys get an extra $1 million a year above and beyond what the state says you can take in property taxes. Your Fund 39 is not within its revenue limits. That's an outstanding referendums that we have now that we're paying on. Why is that? This district seems to have a money problem here, spending money they ain't got. Who's the problem? Is it the school board? Or is it the business manager? Someone's got to be held accountable for these actions. You can't keep operating that way. You have a high school, in that 2019 referendum, you took money from the other schools' heating and cooling system and put into that school. What year was that one built, that high school? I don't know.
97.
97. Okay. That heating and cooling system should not be shot. The heating and cooling system in the elementary school was built after that, right? Should not be shot. So that tells me who's not being held accountable. They wrecked 2 heating and cooling systems that we're paying for now. I hope when you guys did that 2019 budget and you had a company come in and put a new heating and cooling system in, Did you have a plan that they come every summer and winter to maintenance that thing, to make sure it's clean and running properly, so we don't have these issues again? Because apparently our staff doesn't know what they're doing in Rec 2 heating and cooling systems. That's not right. Their lifespan is not that short of a time frame. I have a boiler's license. They're not being properly cleaned and maintained. Something's definitely wrong. What are you gonna do about it, seeing that one's already done and you're asking for the next one? Especially if the referendum passes. Think about that. You guys got a meeting coming up in 2 days. I'll be there. Thanks.
Thank you, Lee. Jeremy?
Feel so unprepared because I don't have any sheets or anything. Anyway, Jeremy Lesha, 803 Rose Court, Somerset. I'm here today not as a Vote Yes committee member any longer. I am here as two students through the district from kindergarten or pre-K up and through, graduated last year, gonna graduate next year. As a citizen, resident, and as a coach. I will tell you right now, there was probably very few people that were as disappointed in November as I was, understanding what our children are not gonna get out of what we needed. My fear is, after that one to the new one, was we are letting on that we didn't need some items because we kept them off. And then I also know that we have 4 weeks left before the vote, if I'm not mistaken. I guess the one thing that I have been trying on, it's amazing how much information is out on social media and how much is factual and how much is just people pulling strings to try to find reasons why not to. But I guess what I'm looking for is a little bit more proactiveness from the board so we can at least get part of this done in April, and hopefully in the near future can help with the rest of the stuff that was left off. I don't know if anybody noticed, our poor softball, baseball, and track teams are not going to be able to do anything until probably end of April. So, and this isn't really an anomaly other than the storms have been happening during the week where we had to cancel school. So, thank you.
Thank you, Jim. Okay, moving on to our reports. We have our student reps that when they come in, we'll go back and catch that.
They might be not coming because of the Fine Arts Festival that they are involved in.
They were supposed to be coming, so. The listening session summary, there wasn't anybody at the listening session this evening. The superintendent's update, since Shannon is unable to make it, she was going to report on the reminder of the referendum community meetings. I highly encourage friends to come and attend those. I think that's a time when questions such as the open forum can get answered, and any further questions, Shannon and other people will be available there. So one of those times is March 8th from 6:30 to 7:30. That's coming up on Wednesday. And it's taking place at the high school multipurpose room. And the second community meeting for any information or feedback would be March 21st, same time, also at the high school multipurpose room. So I highly encourage people to take
6:30 to 7:30?
6:30 to 7:30 at the high school multipurpose room. Okay. Moving on to financial reports and enrollment reports. Did anybody have any comments or questions regarding either of those reports?
Just quick go back on the community meetings. Did she say she's
Yeah.
doing a referendum, or not a referendum, she's doing a PowerPoint again and then it's open forum?
I believe will be similar to how it was the last time, yes.
Okay.
So giving that information and allowing time for questions.
Questions
or
like we had
listening.
tonight.
Mhm.
As far as the financial reports go, at our last, was it the February regular session or work session when Dave presented the actual to budget?
Mhm.
And I specifically asked the question about deficit spending. I believe he said we are on budget, and the budget was created for $400,000 deficit spending.
So we're not at 8 anymore.
Correct.
Thanks, Lori.
Mhm.
Okay, moving on to our policy 2522. If you guys, this is linked, but if anybody needs a, if you want a paper copy, if you want to.
I'll take it. We got some. Do you have enough?
Yeah, Ian or Lori,
Paper? Right there.
Thanks.
So Shannon was going to kind of speak to this as well, but really this is the time to go through, review. We did just review this in November 21st of 2022, but because of some recent questions and as we just heard within the listening session, it was requested that this be put on our agenda for this evening. Because Shannon's not here to speak to it, I mean, we can have that discussion and go through it, but if there's further questions, we can always put it on an upcoming agenda or speak to her.
I'll just say, I would like to have the policy committee review this, but I'd also like the policy committee to identify, Lori, you can probably speak to this, the other policies that pertain to books. I believe there's a couple, right? Books in the classrooms, books in the library, in the media center, what's that?
9130.
9130. And then this one, are there any other policies that pertain to books? Do you know, off the top of your head?
Well, off the top of my head, those are the only two that come to mind.
Okay,
You know, we have multiple policies regarding curriculum, and we have specific policies addressing health curriculum. We do have a community group, which is required by state law to meet annually to go over that policy and what's covered in health class. I don't,
yeah, I guess my thought is, to look at these again with Chris from Neola. We just did this in the fall, and obviously nothing really stood out, but now hearing concerns from the community, I think it's appropriate to look at it again. I'd like to know what there was a public comment about neighboring districts. I'd like to know how we address that. What are they doing about this kind of stuff? And Chris can speak to that, wouldn't you agree, from Neola? From a Neola perspective, at least?
I'm guessing
To talk about best practices and what other
What other districts?
districts are
From a
doing.
Neola perspective, Chris will tell you that the policies recommended by Neola address all of those items.
Okay. Yeah, so I would like to bring it back if the policy committee agrees with that, just to look at. We're gonna meet in April, it's a public meeting, so people wanna come to it.
Are you meeting with Chris again? Or
Yep.
you- Okay.
Yep, Chris will be here. Alicia probably has the date, April 5th?
That sounds right.
I think so.
And just looking at it and hearing the public comment, there's a few things that stand out to me in the policy now that didn't in November. Just about the age that parents can access that information. I have some questions about it. It talks about in this policy, parents of a student under the age of 16 have the right to review upon request. So if you have a 16-year-old in high school, does the parent not have access to what books they're looking at or checking out?
That's what the policy says.
Right, so I have an issue with that, I guess. And yeah, so I'd like to talk about that with Chris.
The other thing I think that it was important to bring up is that there is there is other policies, and I think, one of the things that has come up a lot is there is a difference between what's in our library and what's in our curriculum. So I think to pull up that other policy as well, because books that are in the library accessible are different than books that children are required to be reading per curriculum. So bringing that one up as well. I think if we're gonna look at one, I think it's important to bring up that other piece because there is a difference.
Well, I can tell you as a former staff member that there has never been a time, at least in the last 20 years or more, that if a family had an objection to a book that was being used in as part of the curriculum, that an alternative could be provided. And in the, I would say the last 10 or more years, there's rarely a time that one book is studied or discussed
There's a
by an
choice.
entire class. Typically, there are 5 books that address certain themes, and the kids get to choose which novel or book they'd like to read. I would like to know from the policy committee, why were these policies approved in November, and at the time of our scheduled board meeting, February 27th, they were still not listed in active policies? That's 3 months. Why?
I guess, I don't know. I assume they were there. I guess I never followed up with Chris. 'Cause they went to Chris after that policy committee meeting. He said they go to publication and review. What is the typical turnaround from Neola? Do you know?
More,
Not 3 months?
not 3 months.
Okay.
The other thing is, I looked at this policy as it's listed in our active policies now and compared it to the document that we worked on as a board, and there are a number of errors that I noted that are not corrected in this active policy.
But the active policy is still the old one?
There isn't one old one, this was the first time we had it.
We've never had this
Oh,
policy
that's right,
before.
that's right, okay. I guess we need to follow up with Chris then.
Remember, that was pretty marked up, even just, because she sent us the original one that we marked up. I can't believe how we can follow it, because I remember trying to even figure out what was in and what wasn't in, until she did this, or until we got this, I didn't even.
Well, I went back to the document that we
Oh,
all had as a
commented on.
board from the work session where the comments were on the side. Which is why I believe it's very important that we have a final written copy of the policies as we mean them to be before we approve them. I objected to approving these policies without the final copy in front of us, and this is why.
But changes to that policy, there was nothing as far as, how do I say it, the meat and potatoes of the policy. There was nothing in there that was changed. It was more so typos or wording. It didn't have the specific policy pieces to go through. That wasn't up for discussion for this particular policies, right?
Well, I'm not sure what you mean.
Well, I mean, like the policy itself, as far as wording, like you brought up the age, it was none of those pieces that were up for changing in the policy. It was some like minor wording, minor
Well,
typos.
one of them had to do with fines, and it addressed a policy that we don't have.
Right, yeah.
And I said we do have policy 5513, but
And-
policy 5513 does not address fines for the late return of borrowed materials, and so that should be taken out of this policy.
And that
it's
that
not.
went to Neola, and I guess my assumption was he took all of it, they were gonna fix it and publish it. I guess, I don't know why they haven't done it yet. Because we addressed it, and we approved it, I remember the conversation, we approved it with those changes. And I guess I assumed that Neola, we gave it back to them, they took it from there. So I guess we need to follow up.
Is this their cleaned up version of it
This is the cleaned up version.
from Neola, or is it something,
Well, this
Neola-
must,
somebody here
No, it's
sorted
from,
through and made it look better and got rid of all the?
that's what Neola, that, then they
Well,
send
they're
this back.
posted in our active policies now,
Is it?
and that's what I'm comparing it to, is what's posted in our active policies.
Okay. I'll follow up with Chris tomorrow at Neola to figure out the status, figure out how we can get these finished for their approval.
That'd be great.
And the request that you were saying is to put this back on,
I think the policy committee should look at it
policies.
again. Yep, and I think we need to identify what other policies address books. Let's start there. I think at some point we need to address, I think there'll be a question of, you know, if a teacher can have 5 books, do they just get to pick what it is? And then maybe, is there a policy that addresses that? Do you know off the top of your head?
A policy that addresses.
Well, you talked about if there's a book that doesn't fit with what somebody wants to read, there's other books available.
Mhm.
Is there a policy that outlines what the teacher can choose as content?
Policies are not that specific.
Okay.
Curriculum
curriculum
is that
with
specific. And every single subject area at every single grade level has their curriculum posted on the district website.
So a teacher can't just pick a random book and introduce it as a curriculum, they've got to follow what's
Well, they-
posted.
Well, the
Could pick.
teachers are the ones who write the curriculum.
But it should be posted and available.
It is
Okay.
posted on the district website.
Is that part of like the 25-21 policy, which is selection of learning resources? That's when I kept
25-21.
25-21.
Learning resources would be curriculum itself.
Selection of
but
learning
I'd
resources.
I'd have to look at the specific policy again to make sure. Yeah, that has to do with curriculum. So that's another one. I mean, if you're talking about curriculum, there's a lot of policies that have to do with curriculum.
Okay.
I'm just looking at that 25-21. Well, because that has to do with too, the selection of learning resources. I mean, we're not, and I think maybe that's something too to consult with, to have Trish present, you know, to have some of those.
Yeah. And if you
Pieces.
look at policy 9130, if somebody has an objection to content being used as curriculum, that concern should first be brought to Trish.
Which I think it was, yeah, I mean, it has been. But, so I think starting with the so the 9130 and this 25-22 policies.
And 25-21, but there's probably many more.
That's just how deep do you go?
I mean, you've got 2220, adoption of courses of study, 2230, course guides, 2240, controversial issues in the classroom. I mean, there's
Right.
many.
Right. And I almost feel like, let's look at these book
Well, I think
policies.
specifically with reading material.
Yep, and then as long as everyone knows, parents can look at all the curriculum, right, it's all posted.
Yeah.
And if they find an issue, then we find what policy it fits and we fix that problem.
I don't think our parents need to be policy experts. I think they need to address the problem
Right.
with this particular school administrator and have it handled there. And if it's not, then it would go to a committee like it is now.
Mhm.
And if they're still not happy with the outcome, then it would come before us. But I don't think they need to know specifically what policy needs to be followed. I think
No,
our
right.
administration does.
Yep.
And they do.
Yep.
Well, in going through our role as a board, I think it's important that we're all informed and aware and we can stay on top of this, but making sure that, you know, I know it was said that they've met with the building principal and therefore then going to, you know, superintendent and curriculum instruction and then, you know, after that result, kind of coming to us as far as, but I mean, I think it's good to stay on top of, okay, what's happening, but knowing that it's in people, you know, it's on people's radars and they're staying on top of it.
Okay.
Okay,
We'll discuss that at the policy committee meeting.
I'm still here.
We'll discuss it.
Okay, we will go backwards to our school board representatives.
Okay. Sorry, I did not
Victoria
know.
probably has a concert. She's getting ready for a concert.
Yes. Sorry, I did not know it was at
Now you're
5:30.
done with basketball.
Yes. Okay.
Rub it in.
I was like sad.
Okay, well, yeah, going off to basketball. Girls basketball, we were regional champions, and then we made it to the sectional final, which was on Saturday, versus West Salem and Altoona, and we ended up losing by 5, which ended our season. But it was cool to just make it that far, and it was a fun season. And then boys basketball won against Amory in their first playoff game, but ended their season in Prescott versus Prescott on Friday. And then boys hockey lost their first playoff game against Baldwin, ending their season. Girls hockey lost in their first playoff game versus Onalaska, ending their season. And then robotics made it to state, which we have a state send-off on Friday for them. And then cheer made it to state, and they got 4th and 8th place in different routines. And then dance team also made it to state at the beginning of February, and they got 11th. And then this weekend, Shrek performed, and it was, they sold out their show on Friday, which Miss Olson said was very cool. They haven't done that in a while, so. And I went this weekend, and it was really good. They did really good. And then middle school, they did the blanket project where they make a bunch of tie blankets and then donate them. And then they had a Valentine's Day escape room in English, which is this picture. And then Cora took first place in her wrestling tournament. And then the elementary school celebrated 100 days of school, which is this picture and that one. And then there was mustache making day, which is that one. And then a 3rd grade concert where students worked with high school ASL students to learn how to sign the song You've Got a Friend in Me, which is this. And then they celebrated reading with a readathon and stop drop and read days, which is this. And yeah, that's it.
Awesome. Thank you so
Yes.
much for sharing.
Yes, for sure.
I have to say, it was a blast over the last couple of weeks, and all the games, the playoff games, going to Amory, being in Somerset, watching the girls play, it was amazing, and they did awesome. It was
Yes,
so
thank
much
you.
fun.
Yeah, it was so much fun to play in. It was really exciting. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Yes.
Okay, moving on to our topics for action. Is there a motion to approve those as listed? Or any questions on specific topics for action?
I'll make a motion to approve the topics for action, the 7A, employee sick bank, 7B, the minutes of January 23rd, the minutes of February 13th, 7D, the minutes of February 28th, the personnel update in item 7E, 7F, the athletics personnel update, 7G, that we support the post-prom party, and 7H, that we approve the district calendar for the 2023-2024 school year.
Is there a second to that? Thank you for listing all that out, Lori.
I'll second.
Any discussion?
Yes, I would like to know if we can start including in the personnel update under the exit page, the starting date or time of service as the athletics personnel update provides. On the exit page of the athletics personnel update, when someone is exiting, it says how long they've been in that role, but we do not have that information on the personnel update. And one of the reasons I'd like to have it is because of the background checks and physicals we're doing for so many of our employees, and how in some positions, we seem to almost have a revolving door. And I'm wondering how long some of these employees are here.
So you're asking for their start date?
Either a start
Or years of
date
service.
or a time of service
Okay.
as is provided in the athletics personnel update.
Okay. That would be good information, I think, just to have that, to know
Well,
what.
especially when you have licensed teaching staff who have provided many years of service. In the athletics personnel update, someone, I can't remember now, I just looked at it, was leaving after like 17 years or something in a position. You know, and when we have people who have been in that position in the personnel update, you know, it'd be nice to recognize that.
Thank you. Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Going once around the table. Ian, do you want to start us off? Oh, I'm sorry, right as you coughed. Sorry, is that okay?
It's all right. No, thanks for the presenters and public comment. And I'm looking forward to heading over to the Fine Arts Festival. Going on right now.
Matt?
Just thank you to those in the community that reached out about this, the book and the content stuff. I think it's important to stay connected with those of us on the board. You know, we're not in the classrooms, I'm not in those classrooms, and it's important to me to know what you're finding and seeing so that I can do my part to address it. So thanks for reaching out, and thanks for following the policy and going through the proper steps as it's designed. We can always get better, but thank you. That's it.
Just kudos to all the good things with sports, the musical this past weekend, the art that's going on tonight. Just as far as for the board, further board development, I know it was discussed about a possible further board development before the referendum. And after throwing out some dates, it just doesn't work for everybody. So we'll do it following, but just to continue to stay on top of the things that Shannon's sending out as far as like the community meetings and different opportunities to get out there. Bruce?
Just again, I guess if there's questions, even in public comment, you know, I know we don't address them at the time, but you can letting us know ahead of time. I mean, we can email or, you know, if we see someone on Wednesday at the community meeting, you know, we can respond then. But if there are issues, I guess, reach out to the board and we can reach out to Shannon, and she can help identify some of those, you know, like Lori brought up, the deficit spending where that actually is currently. I mean, we might not have it right now in this moment, but there's a couple questions I was asked at a town board meeting last week when I was presenting on the referendum. And I asked Dave, and I have those answers now. You know, that was Wednesday, and he had me the answers this morning. He was out last week, but he's got me this afternoon, so. Keep asking us questions. I mean, we will do our part. I'll do my part if someone asks me to find the answer, so I can reach back out to those people with those questions, or afterwards, or tonight, or whoever. You know, stop and grab me, or you know, I'll just advocate for myself. Stop, ask me a question, write it down. Maybe you don't have the answer at the time, but that's it. And again, it was super fun watching basketball and the musical this weekend. There's a lot of good stuff going on. It was a very full weekend, but it was awesome.
Marge?
I attended Shrek this weekend too, and it was fantastic. And so I hope we can get a yes on the referendum and get the auditorium and encourage these kids to keep acting and doing what they're doing. And you saw kids out there that would normally not be out in front of a group and stuff, and I was so impressed with their skills and everything, and that they found a spot for everybody. So it was great.
Lori?
And especially to our staff who work with all those kids for hours and hours and hours. Becky Wilson, Zach Revart, who stepped into a very difficult position this year. And Eric Purcell, our band director, was there for every performance assisting, you know, and some of the people working with the kids and assisting at all these performances are volunteers. I'd also like to just a reminder that action items for the March 20th regular session, other than minutes, bills, and personnel updates, should be discussed at a work session prior to the regular session. And just note that BCCing all board members by multiple board members on a single topic constitutes a quorum and violates open meeting laws. That's it.
Okay. Then moving on, is there a motion to adjourn the meeting?
Make a motion to adjourn.
Is there a second?
Also,
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? The meeting is adjourned at 6:11.